But we started Elevate to just help people to be able to shepherd more deeply, and so we're going to be talking a little bit more about that today. One of the things that often gets in the way of this is our overcommitment and dissatisfaction with our own ability to accomplish the things that are most important to us, so just prioritizing the different aspects of our life. So we have Chris Williams here today to talk to us about that, and he's a great person to guide us on this topic because he's been a pastor, a professor, and now he's actually a pastor of pastors who partners with churches, and he has a great framework to share with us for this. So let's welcome Chris Williams.
Thanks, Faith. That was better than the introduction I got at a church I was just at not 2 days ago. I was there to preach for the Sunday morning service, and the pastor got up to introduce me and said, "So today we have with us Reverend Chris Williams. He's the Assistant District Superintendent. I don't really know anything about him, and I don't even know if he can preach. But please give him your attention." And then he just walked over and sat down, and I was just sitting there like, what is happening right now? So, Faith, good job on the introduction. So much better than last Sunday. So, I have observed something in our culture, and maybe you've observed it too, where when you maybe will greet someone, maybe you're standing in line at McCon or you're hanging out in line at Baldwin or whatever, and someone comes up to you and you greet them and you might say, "How are you doing?" Right? Which is a standard greeting that human beings use. When I was younger, we used to answer a standard question like that with standard kinds of answers. We might say something like this: "I'm fine. How are you?" Or, "I'm doing pretty good." Or, "Things are kind of rough right now." We would actually answer the question by describing how we were actually doing. Now what I've discovered is that one of the answers that I hear most frequently when someone says, "How are you doing?" people will say, "I'm so busy." Like, I actually hear this a lot. I interact with a lot of pastors, and when I ask them, "So how are you doing?" they will tell me, "Oh, I'm just so busy." And it's starting to actually bother me that people will describe their well-being with a term that talks about how much they're doing. It's like they didn't hear the question. And so what I've discovered is that we in our society today are just getting busier and busier and busier. And there are lots of reasons that we're busy. And I've been thinking a lot about this because I'm busy. Like, I've been kind of reflecting on my life the last couple of years. I took this new job that I'm in right now. I've been in it 2 years, so I guess you can't say it's a new job. But that job kind of just ramped up activity in my life. And I actually went for like 3 or 4 months without a Sabbath day and just got really busy and had all kinds of responsibilities. I kind of listed out what are all the kind of major areas of responsibility in my job, and there were a lot of them, like 14, which is like way too many, and I just got really busy, and so I started kind of thinking about this whole idea of busyness and what it means for our lives. So here's some of the reasons I identified for why people get busy. Maybe you can connect with one or more of these. The first one is, I think we're busy because we're empty. I think people actually get busier in life because there's a myth in our culture that the best people are the busiest people. Right? So we in our lives are actually empty. We want to be important. We want to be significant. We want to have this sense of accomplishment and that we're worth something, that we're valuable, that we matter. And we look around at our culture and we see people maybe that we look up to or we want to emulate, and we see how busy they are, and we wrongly assume that what makes that person significant, important, or valuable is just the fact that they have a lot of activity in their life. And so I actually think that we do ourselves a disservice because we're just trying to fill up an emptiness inside of us. Now, I'm not here today just to bash busyness. I actually think there are some good reasons to be busy, and we're going to talk about those in a minute. But I do want to just challenge the assumption that if our calendar is full to the brim and overflowing, that somehow our importance has increased. I think that's a fallacy that we're buying into in our culture, and it makes us too busy, and so we miss out on the ability to do the most important things in life. A second reason that I think we are busy is because we're just inefficient, right? Now, I'm not going to talk about this one a whole lot, but we just manage our time poorly, right? If you have binge watched Netflix 4 times in the last week, you're inefficient. Okay? Like, there are things we fill our lives with that are activity, that take time, that take energy, that take resources, that actually aren't important at all. Now, they might be fun, and they might be relaxing, and there might be spaces in our life where it makes sense. Okay? The new season of Walking Dead just came out on Netflix. I mean, not the newest season, but the newest one on Netflix. And it might be appropriate to take a few hours and just get that done, right? I understand that. But we can't do that every day, right? Because if we do, there are a whole bunch of things that we're actually responsible for that actually create real value in the world that we won't get done. So we're empty, we're inefficient. Another reason we're busy is because there are a lot of options. Right? There is an explosion of options in our culture. Right? When I was a kid, some 35 or 40 years ago, on our television in our house, which sat on the floor because it was a piece of furniture. It was gigantic. It had this big cabinet around it, and it sat on the floor. We had 2 channels. Now, there was an option for a third if you got the antenna in just the right spot. And some of you are like, what's an antenna? Right? I remember as a kid duct taping a coat hanger to the antenna to get a little more height on it so I could get the third channel because there was something I wanted to watch. Right? Now, if you get DirecTV or you get Xfinity, you will have 600 channels potentially. And another 100 channels of music that comes with that. Right? And then add to that things like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime Video, and you start just seeing this expanding reality of options that we are dealt with. And we're just talking about one industry. Right? Go to the cereal aisle. Right? There are just expanding options for us. And there are lots of things that we can do with our time. There's a new Verizon commercial out. You may have seen it. It's like 2 people in an office talking. And the lady says, if someone upgrades to the new iPhone and they buy our unlimited data plan, there is more entertainment than they will have time in the day to engage with. So I'm proposing that we add an extra hour to every day. Right? This is the world that we live in. Options are expanding and growing. You have about 168 hours, I think it is, in a week, something like that. And if you sleep 7 hours, right? College students are like, 7 hours, kidding me? But if you sleep 7 or 8 hours and you actually do the amount of work you're supposed to do for each class that you're in, right? You're supposed to do 2 hours out of class for 1 hour that you're in class, which basically makes school like a full-time job, 40 to 50 hours a week. If you do that and you sleep your 8 hours a day, and if you work a job for 10 hours,